welcome fellow sovereign individuals. My name is Ingmar, aka Ingalandia. I'm a contributor to Sovryn. It took about 11 years for whoever has, thank you. It took about 11 years for decentralized financial services to begin incorporating Bitcoin, and we're here because they're now starting to truly develop. So we have multiple lanes of initiatives for getting Bitcoin onto a DeFi application layer, each with trade-offs in security, capital efficiency, liquidity, and trustlessness. Nevertheless, we know for sure that DeFi needs Bitcoin more than anything. DeFi needs to tap into Bitcoin's liquidity in order to reach its full potential. Can't reach its full potential without Bitcoin. So if we're building a decentralized financial application, it deserves proper governance where trust is minimum. Our decision-making processes are as decentralized as possible. So as you know, Sovryns Bitocracy has formed, and our forum launched Wednesday of last week, which you can check out at forum.sovryn.app. New proposals are being drafted and discussed with tremendous support from the community. We're being remarkably vocal, even when many are unable at the to vote on chain. So hats off to you guys for making your voices heard loud and clear. Our Bitocratic process is being developed, some of the brightest minds in DeFi DAO governance, and we're very excited for what's to come. So thanks for being a part of the Sovryn community, and thank you for sharing in this mission. I would like to introduce Iago, a contributor to Sovryn, but first, if anyone who is new to these calls would like to introduce themselves and maybe say, what got them curious, what got them here, the floor is yours. We'd like to keep this a very, very open discussion.
Sure. Obviously, the whole DeFi on Bitcoin got me interested. I just happened to find it the other day searching. The only question I really have to start is, what kind of similar project would you compare this to that already exists on like all the Ethereum DeFi?
Well, I don't know that there is a project like this on Ethereum DeFi. Ethereum has a very, very different logic. The logic of Ethereum is right now everything is built on layer 1, and all of the different DeFi dApps are heavily dependent upon each other. That is going to have to change because Ethereum layer 1 has reached the limits of its scalability. Anyone who's tried to transact on Ethereum recently knows that they have to pay for a simple transaction $30, $40. For complex smart contract transactions, $100, $120. Sometimes as much as $400. So what's happening is the entire smart contract space, and this has always been the criticism that Bitcoiners said, Bitcoiners, when they criticize Ethereum, said that you can't scale Turing complete systems on chain in the way that Ethereum is planning. What's happening now is that systems are migrating to layer 2. And nobody's sure how that's going to play out. With Sovryn, we are doing the same thing. So Sovryn is a layer 2 system. It runs a Bitcoin layer 2. It's going to be introducing even more scalability, which we'll be talking about later today. And it's going to be deeply integrated with Ethereum. But as a result, it's got different logic. So Sovryn is a full stack operating system for finance. It's got lending. It's got borrowing, flash loans, AMM, oracles, stable coins, and trading and leverage trading. So it's got all of the basic primitives that you need, and that's important because as we move to a world where more and more projects move into layer 2, the issues of composability and the ability for different smart contracts to interact with each other as they do on layer 1, that's going to change. And so we think that for the next phase or next gen DeFi, you're going to need full stack systems. By the way, Mariano, what were you searching for that you found us?
It wasn't Mariano, but
Oh, sorry.
no, I was just I don't even know what I was searching for. I was just on the back pages of Google looking for just different DeFi projects. Probably
Cool.
what I looked up.
Does anyone want to introduce themselves, or anyone else, or should we get into the meat and potatoes?
I can say something. So, hi folks. My name is John Light, and until recently, I was working on the Aragon project, which is a project on EVM or on Ethereum and other EVM chains for creating DAOs. And I'm also a longtime community member. And I have been brought on to help Sovryn with its Bitocracy, governance, transparency, documentation related to governance. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with the community on Bitocracy, and if anyone has any thoughts or feedback, concerns, questions about Bitocracy, my door is open. So I'm always happy to chat about any of these topics. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, John. It's really cool having John on board the team. He's one of a number of new contributors to Sovryn. I'd just like to ask before we move forward, if everyone can please mute themselves. And I'm going to ask if the moderators or admin can please, in a couple of minutes, if people have muted themselves, mute them, because otherwise we get interruptions like this.
Sure.
All right.
Were you asking me before? Were you asking me a question? Sorry, I wasn't in the meeting.
I thought you were talking, but you weren't. All right, guys, we have a community meeting at the end of every sprint. What we mean by a sprint is the work that the Sovryn core developers do. We break up into 2-week periods called sprints, and then we sprint like madmen to get all of the stuff that we want to get done. And this community call, like all of our others, is a banger. There has been so much progress. Now, one of the things is, the way you get to the moon is not slowly, it's fast. And more than fast, it has to be accelerating. And one of the coolest things about Sovryn is that the pace of development, the speed at which we're moving, the growth of the community, on all these fronts, the pace is accelerating. So what I'm going to try and do is give you guys an update on some of the stuff that's been going on over the last 2 weeks. And then we can talk about some of the things which are coming up and answer any questions. All right, so let's start with development. Over the last 2 weeks, we have launched Governance V1. We've already had 4 votes pass with very, very high participation rates. No issues have occurred with the governance system, and we are now upgrading already the system to Governance V2, which is going to be time-weighted. It's going to be the fully fleshed out governance system that we've been imagining, and it's going to also include TGE, so the creation of SOV tokens. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. In addition to that, as you guys know, there have been difficulty. It's been difficult to get Bitcoin onto the Sovryn system, and that's because we've been relying up until now on the RSK RBTC peg. The RBTC peg has a number of disadvantages, but one of the big ones is it's very hard to use. It's hard to get liquidity onto the system. We now have a new peg, which we're currently calling the Sovryn BTC peg, or Sovryn BTC, which is going to make it much easier and much more trustless to get your Bitcoin onto Sovryn. That is already on testnet. So the pace, that's a huge project. And the devs have already managed to get onto testnet. It's currently in testing, and I think we are looking at between 4 to 6 weeks before it's on mainnet. In addition to that, there's also the tight integration that we want with Ethereum, another very big piece of work. So the Sovryn token bridge to Ethereum is also on testnet now, and once it's sufficiently tested, that too will start allowing transfers of tokens quite seamlessly between Ethereum and Sovryn. In addition to that, we had the Sovryn Genesis reservation system. So we built that system to facilitate Genesis. We learned a lot from it. We've improved that system, built additional functionality, and we now are shifting that to being used for the Sovryn Origins presale. Sovryn Origins presale is going to have to be improved by you guys when you vote, but assuming that you choose that you want to move forward with the Origins presale, there's two big pieces of new functionality that have been built out. One is the ability to have a Dutch auction, to have an auction system. The second is the ability to pre-fund, to have a pre-funding period so that people don't need to rush like we had with Genesis, with everyone rushing in the first few minutes. People can take a little bit more time and not have to go crazy with fees. And it also means that the difference in speed between Bitcoin transactions and RSK transactions is mitigated. One of the cool things about the Sovryn Origins platform is that it is going to become a platform. It's going to become a launch platform. So we realized as we were building this, that technology can be used now to facilitate the launch of other projects. So if somebody is building a different project which requires a governance token, or are looking to launch something else, they no longer need to launch on centralized exchanges. They can now launch on Sovryn, and that system is likely to be another big feature of the Sovryn system, and will continue to improve. In addition to that, you guys might remember that we had 1,000 concurrent users or more using Sovryn during Genesis, and the system worked seamlessly. There were a lot of people using it, and we didn't have enough CSOV to go around, but the system didn't go down. That's because we have substantially improved the nodes. We are continuing to improve those nodes to make sure that the system is able to have higher and higher throughput. And so the throughput of the system has also substantially improved. We also have 2 teams that are currently working on mobile applications for Sovryn that will integrate with Sovryn, and several other wallet teams who are looking to integrate Sovryn. There's a new so another big thing that happened is we have taken the feedback from the community around the trading, introduced a lot of improvements and changes, and relaunched trading as of today. In addition to that, there's a new trading UI that is coming, and we expect that it might be on testnet as early as Monday or Tuesday next week, and then maybe even by the end of next week it will be on mainnet. So one of the best things that happened this week was we announced that we were turning the trading back on testnet, and we asked the community to help us test the system, and a lot of you did. There was a huge amount of participation in the testing. It helped us identify an issue and correct that issue before it was put onto mainnet. Super important. So thank you very much. It's we'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that's been going on with the community, but that is what makes Sovryn so strong. So keep your eyes open for this new trading UI. It's going to have more functionality, more beauty, and it's going to be easier to use, I think, than what we currently have. It would be great to get you guys using it on testnet. In addition to that, we're trying to figure out how we can help reward users who are using things on testnet and contributing in other ways. We're open to suggestions. But we're actively looking to put out a program which can also be somewhat retroactive for rewarding our most dedicated members. We have new analytics coming out, and then there's and so that's been a very big piece of work which which is now starting to come to fruition. And then, in addition to that, and all of the other things that we've been discussing, there is work that has started on introducing the rollup, which will allow us to scale our system to 4,500 transactions per second, and reduce fees, we think, by at least a factor of 10, and allow for near instantaneous validation of transactions. So that is going to probably be in partnership with the Arbitrum team. We're also working with the Starkware guys, and that work has already started, and it's a big piece of work, but it might be out sooner than we think. So huge amount of progress has happened. The team are absolute beasts, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. They've been working their asses off. In addition to all of that, we've got for the Sovryn BTC peg, we've been working with the Keep team. We've been working with Starkware, Liquality, have been providing one of the best rated wallets by our community. And so you've probably started to see the Liquality team appearing more and more in our channels. They've noticed that we are driving them more users than any other project. And so now they have become more and more part of the Sovryn community. We've been talking to a number of other projects and wallets in the space. Some of those are commercial companies, so we can't necessarily, we don't want to make announcements. It's for them to make announcements. We're like, Sovryn is an open source project that's not really going to be announcing these things, but I can tell you that a lot of these things are happening, as well as a number of exchanges seem to be very interested in Sovryn and in SOV. And then two of the coolest things, we have a really awesome team of auditors. So we've got, can someone please mute JC chat? So we have a partnership now with the Pessimistic team. They are an awesome group of auditors who are now auditing every single pull request that goes through our system, which means that every single line of code is being audited at least 3 times by 3 different groups with Sovryn. In addition to that, Immunify are working on putting together a SIP, even though they're not Sovryn stakeholders. So this is one of the first third-party SIPs. They're putting together a SIP to create a bug bounty for Sovryn, and I think that might be out pretty soon, which, again, a very big deal in terms of making sure that Sovryn is the most secure system possible. And then finally, over the last 2 weeks, we also had 4 SIPs, 4 Sovryn improvement proposals, go through the Bitocracy system and be voted on. And so the first one was the creation of the multi-sig treasury system. The number 2 and number 3 were around the creation of the Genesis sale. And number 4 was the allocation of additional CSOV to those who had sent funds during the Genesis reservation period. Right. One of the coolest things that happened during that was that the community came together, and I think Julpy was one of the key architects of this, and put together a way for them to create a vote even before they had the ability to vote. And I think this is so super cool, because one of the things that you keep on hearing about DeFi projects and so-called decentralized projects is that they struggle to get their token holders to vote. With Sovryn, you can't stop the people from voting even if they don't have their tokens. It's phenomenal. Every few days there's something which causes me to fall in love with this community again. And then we've also been getting a whole bunch of messages from people looking to help. So the team's really grown, and it's anything from people who are like John, who have come on to help with governance, people who are helping with creating documentation, Cash June, who is trying to create Sovryn swag and showed me some images of some stuff that she's looking to create, which is super cool. So there's so much happening, and all of this just has been in the last 2 weeks. It feels like months, and it's like, one of the things I always experience with crypto is, it's faster than regular time, but with Sovryn, every day is 21 regular human days. So I'm going to pause here for a second because maybe some of you have questions or thoughts around what was just said, and then we can move on to next steps. So just a quick reminder. Guys, I can hear myself talking because someone's not muted. So just a quick reminder about the tradition that we have here. When somebody wants to say something, you can raise your hand by muting and unmuting yourself, and that's sort of like a way of signaling that you want to talk, basically doing this. So if anyone wants to comment or ask a question.
Hey, Yago, it's Whipper. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Whipper?
Good. I'm not sure if you want to elaborate or not with regards to the SOV token peg. I'm just curious if you can elaborate on that or not. Just want to understand how it's going to work, if you can speak about it. I know it's pretty complicated subject matter, and maybe you don't want to discuss it now, but I just want to sort of get a better understanding, just very briefly,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Sure. Thanks for that question. It's a really great question. So I mentioned that we're working on an improved peg, and that's what Whipper is referring to. So let me explain what that means and why it's so important. The Bitcoin peg is the way that you basically peg Bitcoin. You put Bitcoin into a smart contract on the Bitcoin side, and then you create Bitcoins on the RSK or on the sidechain side that you can then use to interact with the smart contracts like Sovryn. The way this has traditionally been done is you put your Bitcoin into a multi-sig contract and then create a token on the sidechain. But any multi-sig contract has owners, which means that the system isn't entirely trustless. You're basically putting your Bitcoin into the hands of the multi-sig owners. Question is it possible to create a more trustless peg? Right now, in the wild, I think that the most trustless peg in the world, the most permissionless peg in the world, is TBTC, which is currently on Ethereum and is built by the Thesis and the Keep teams. The way it works is you instead of creating multi-sigs, they create these threshold signature schemes, which are kind of like multi-sigs. Doesn't matter really right now how they're different. But instead of just having one giant one, for every new deposit, a new one is created. And that new one is created by randomly selecting from a group of validators, 3 validators who are going to hold it. Now, how do you become a validator? Well, it's important that anyone can become a validator. So it's a permissionless system. And the way TBTC do this is to be part of the validator pool, you need to put down collateral. So this achieves 2 things. First of all, it creates this pool of validators. But the second thing is it makes it extremely uneconomical for the validators to cheat. They can't steal your funds without hurting themselves more. Why? Because they need to put down more collateral than they could possibly steal. Today, that means more than for every Bitcoin that goes into the system, there needs to be more than 1.5 Bitcoin worth of collateral. And the collateral that the TBTC system uses is Ethereum. Now, TBTC has been growing quite a lot. I think it's got like about $30 million worth of Bitcoin in it right now. But it has some significant limitations. It's computationally very expensive. And as a result, because it's running on Ethereum, it's very expensive to run. And so it's very expensive to do the transfers. The second issue is that it's, it's not part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's not validated by Bitcoin in any way. And there's some other things. So what we have been doing is we've been working partly with the Keep and the Thesis teams, and there's a team that have kind of come on board and are contributing to Sovryn. And what they've done is they've designed and created a version of this, which is different. It's validated by the Bitcoin miners. It is running on our system, so it's computationally far less expensive. And it also, instead of using Ethereum as collateral, right now what it uses is SOV as collateral. It can use any native asset, but right now the only native asset is SOV. So, and then in addition to that, there are some improvements which we think we can introduce, which will allow us to reduce the collateralization ratio below 1.5, maybe below 1. In other words, you would be able to have fractional collateralization because the threshold signature holders wouldn't be able to steal the funds. This is very important. It has a lot of important implications. One is it will make it much easier to move funds onto the Sovryn system. Second, it will mean that the Bitcoin held in the Sovryn system are pegged in a much more trustless, permissionless, and censorship-resistant way. But there's also another implication. And this implication is a little bit exciting and a little bit terrifying. Because what it basically means is that there's now a whole new use case for SOV that we didn't envision initially, which was staking in this system. And if you look at the amount of potential interest, there could be hundreds of millions of dollars worth of worth of Bitcoin that want to flow eventually into the Sovryn system. And they will all need to be collateralized by SOV on the other side. This could create a huge amount of demand for SOV, which, from the perspective of driving demand for SOV and interest and the desire to acquire SOV is great. But it also means that there's a potential limiting factor. Because it could create a supply shock for SOV. It might be that there's more demand than actual SOV circulating. And that could create substantial volatility around the SOV price. So it's something that we're thinking about very carefully, and we're going to be watching carefully. But it is an extremely important and exciting development for Sovryn. Whipper, did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks. But just quickly, so will the SOV token be primarily used as collateral, or the Keep team's Ethereum, or will they just use Ethereum like they're doing right now on the TBTC? I'm not so familiar with TBTC,
it's
by the
not
way. I'm
possible.
more familiar with
There is no native Ethereum in Sovryn. So at least to begin with, it will only be SOV.
Right.
The only Ethereum we can have on our system is Ethereum, which is wrapped Ethereum, which comes through the bridge. And the problem is that then you have an additional trust requirement, which is that you need to trust the bridge. The Ethereum bridge it won't have the same level of trustlessness as the Bitcoin peg, and therefore you wouldn't want to limit the trustlessness of the Bitcoin peg to the Ethereum bridge. Now, there are improvements that we are looking to introduce to make the Ethereum bridge more trustless, but that will take time. And so in the meantime, SOV needs to be the only form of collateral I think that we can actually use.
Understood. Thanks, Iago.
Any other thoughts or questions? Solbit?
Hey, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Brilliant. First of all, thank you to the team. You guys have done a really amazing job so far, and same to the community as well. Everybody's been really engaged. It's really good to see. I have a couple of points, just one question. First point was regarding Bitocracy and plans to, open that up to other projects. It's a really great idea. Reminds me a bit of Polkastarter, something like that, kind of a nurturing space for projects to grow. That's great. Then in terms of rewards for participating in testnet, have you guys considered rewarding SOV tokens potentially?
Absolutely, that is pretty much so. Basically the thinking is either directly rewarding in SOV or rewarding in special NFTs, which provide you with benefits, like enhanced liquidity mining or things like that.
And they look cool as well.
And they look cool as well. I think you guys, I think we've put out some very cool NFTs so far.
Yeah, really impressed. Sad that I couldn't get the higher tier ones. One last question then. You mentioned sort of adding additional tokens to the platform, so Ethereum tokens. What process would there be for adding a token onto Sovryn? So would it be similar to Uniswap, where it's effectively, democratic and anybody can add something? Or would it be a case of the team approving tokens to be added, or how would that work?
That's an excellent question. In theory, the system can work and is as permissionless to add tokens as Uniswap. Right now, in practice, it's not, because we haven't built out the interfaces which would make it really easy for people to do that. And so one of the things that one of the things on our backlog of like to-do wish is make it much easier to add new tokens. And that's going to be true for the bridge, and it's going to be true for the AMM, and it's going to be true for the lending pool. So no small amount of work required there. But at least the AMM is designed from the bottom up to allow us to do that.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. That's kind of what I thought. Yeah, look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Cool. So your questions were a great segue into next steps. So what's coming next? All right. So today is Friday. Starting next week, we have a new sprint. This new sprint is about as action-packed as this one, maybe even more. On Monday or Tuesday, we think what's going to happen is we will launch SOV token. And it's going to be live. The baby's going to be born. With the launch of SOV token, we will also have the upgrade of the Bitocracy system. One of the first things that's going to happen after that is that the SOV token holders, which is the founding team and the early funders, are going to vote to allow CSOV token holders to become SOV token holders as well. Guys, NLH hybrid, thank you. So there will be a vote on SIP 5. Then, oh, by the way, something that we did that I didn't mention, there's a new forum, forum.sovryn.app, for deeper conversation, especially around governance issues. I'd love to see all of you guys participating. You can start threads, add the threads, just an aside. So SIP 5. Then, all of you who have CSOV will become SOV token holders, and you'll participate in the next vote. And the next vote is probably going to be SIP 6. SIP 6 is going to be a vote on the Origin presale. If SIP 6 passes, we will be able to have the Origin presale. And if you guys go and read SIP 6, you'll see it's like a Dutch auction, starting with a maximum price currently proposed to be 10,000 sets and going down to 3,000 sets. Even before that, maybe middle of next week, we'll be able to start the pre-funding process. And in addition to that, middle to end of next week, we expect also to have tested the new trading UI a little bit. And hopefully by the end of next week or beginning of the week after that, we'll have the new trading UI up. So the week after next week is probably when we're going to have the Origin presale, the new trading UI, and we might be able to already allow you guys to start trying out the Ethereum bridge on testnet at that point, so that you can see what it's like. I'm not sure, because there's a UI which needs to be built out on that. And there's also one of the most important things that you guys can do is try out the new governance UI, because this is going to be the way that you participate and control the destiny of this project. And the easier it is to use and understand, the better. So, we'd love feedback. And then there are two other proposals which don't have dates on them yet, but could potentially happen around end of February or beginning of March. One proposal is that we've been approached by a number of groups who are sort of they want to be larger participants in the Sovryn ecosystem. Some of them are exchanges, some of them are funds, some of them are like organized groups from different geographies. And so one of the ideas that has come up is to basically allow them or ask them to explain why they should be allowed to purchase SOV and become major stakeholders in the system. Basically ask them, what value they can bring, and then discuss that with the community. There is an additional consideration, which may be making that an official vote for the community. Although some people have raised the objection that that would mean much less, it would slow the whole process down, it would make it more complicated, and would mean that some of these groups, which are quite private, can't participate. And so some people are suggesting that the founders should try and just best decide whether or not such sort of strategic sales of SOV should even be allowed. But that's something that we can discuss as a community and come to a conclusion about. And then the second thing is to tie us more closely with the Ethereum community, access the liquidity in Ethereum, and start bringing people from Ethereum over to Sovryn. There's also an idea to have the final pre-sale before SOV becomes public on Ethereum, probably also as an auction, and probably using our interface, which means that our interface would become a RSK and Ethereum interface, able to manage two different chains. There's not a small amount of work that needs to happen there, and so a decision needs to be made. And the devs really need to figure out whether or not they can handle that additional workload. But that also is an additional thing that might happen towards the end of this month, and around which there may be an additional vote. And then finally, we are planning, once those things are done, to start liquidity mining and referral mining, and then potentially also have some other programs like we discussed around supporting community members to take on more active roles, and supporting devs or dev sort of like other teams who want to start developing on the Sovryn protocol. So we're very open to ideas around all of those things, and probably the best place to flesh out some of those ideas is in forum.sovryn.app. One of the key things to remember is anyone can write a SIP. So you need to be a delegate or to have a substantial amount of SOV in order to actually turn your SIP into a proposal which can be voted on. But anyone can write a SIP, and if it gains traction, it will become a proposal. And if it's voted on and passed, it will become part of the system. So anyone, even if you don't have the ability, even if you're not an active coder, anyone can effectively contribute to the design, creation, and future of the Sovryn protocol. So a lot of big stuff coming up over the next 2 weeks, and we're just getting started. Are there any thoughts, questions, comments on that? And I think also we can open it up to just general. We have another 20 minutes in the call, which is great for questions. And I think I see Sarada.
Yes.
Hi, Sarada.
Can I ask a question? So you told we need to have some amount of some amount of SOV for creating. What would be that amount?
No, anyone can create a SIP, but in order to
to make it votable,
Yeah, so
Delegates?
the amount is you need to be a delegate, or in other words, you need to have 1% of all SOV delegated to you, or you need to have yourself 1% of the voting SOV, in other words, of all the staked SOV, in order to be able to put forward a proposal. That can change, right? So we can have a proposal to change it, but that's the way it's currently structured. One thing I'll say about that, the way the governance system is designed is we are extremely conscious of the fact that, I mean, just in the last 2 weeks, and this is just the beginning, we've created 7 SIPs, I think.
Yes.
It's a lot. It's a full-time job to pay attention to all of these, which means that not everyone will be able to. So we've created a system where you can delegate your vote to people who you are happy with the way that they're voting, happy with the type of analysis that they're doing, happy with their participation in the community. You can always stop delegating to them. You can always remove from them. But one of the opportunities here, and you guys can start, if this is something which is interesting to you, I very much suspect that in the very near future, being a delegate could become a full-time job, and a profitable one too. So one of the things that we want to do is introduce a way for delegates to earn sort of a revenue stream. So if you guys think that having a deep interest in the future of this protocol is just something that is interesting to you, start cultivating yourselves as potential future delegates, because in just a few days, people will get the rights to delegate, and you can start campaigning now to become a delegate and to get people to delegate their votes to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a huge number of people on the call. I don't always see if somebody is trying to say something. No questions or comments?
Sorry.
Oh, all right. I see Waystribus and Wooligan, and maybe Unicum as well. So let's start with Waystribus, then Wooligan, Unicum. Waystribus? Wastribus? I don't know. All right. Shifting to Wooligan.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot about. First, you mentioned having your launch in like a 1 to 2 week time frame, but then you mentioned a whole lot of other stuff, including the Ethereum, possible Ethereum presale and stuff. Is that all going to be done within the next couple weeks, or did I miss something with the timeline there?
The Ethereum sale could potentially be at beginning of March. It's a question of whether or not we choose to have it and how long it takes to implement. And all of these things ultimately require SOV stakeholders to decide to do them. So I can't say that any. Sorry.
So if you're launching SOV token in this 1 to 2 week time frame, then is that Ethereum really a pre-sale?
Yes, because that's a great question. SOV, when it launches, is not going to be transferable. It's going to you'll be able to use it to vote, but you won't be able to transfer it until the pre-sale process is over. So it could be another couple of weeks before that happens.
Okay, thanks.
And in fact, Aurora, I want to ask: we set a timing around that, right? It was going to be 30 days, or is it adjustable?
I think we have to set it in advance before we start it, but well, we could also make it adjustable. Shouldn't be too much work.
If it's not a lot of work, then we should probably make it adjustable. But otherwise, I think maybe we should consider making it 21 days.
Yes. So the question is if, because the vesting will be delayed by this time, and to make the start of the vesting adjustable would be a little bit more work than just reducing the transferring capabilities. So yeah, but 21 days sounds like a good number.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll do that. If anyone has any objections, you're welcome to write them up. I think, Willigan, did we answer your question? Do you have anything else? All right. Unicum, I think you wanted to ask something.
Yeah, but nothing especially great or something. I just saw a question being asked a lot in many different channels, and it's about the origin sale, and that they people did register themselves for the email like confirmation on the origin sale, and they didn't get anything in return, so they don't know if they are registered or not. And everyone was asking like, how can I know that I'm still registered for the origin sale participation or not?
That's a question. Yeah, I've been seeing those comments as well. We've been looking into it. So we created a form where people who registered but think they didn't get an email can write to us, and then we can investigate. We've investigated all of the ones that have written on the form, and all of them had emails sent to them. So the system was sending the emails. Now, there have been several thousand people who have registered. I think it's almost 3,000 right now. So even if 1% are not seeing the emails, or it's going to spam or whatever, we'll get a whole bunch of people telling us that they're not getting the emails. But it's also possible that there's some other issue that we haven't identified. But right now, it looks like the system is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's sending out the emails. We've tested it ourselves. We've gotten the emails. Don't know what's going on with that.
Okay, thanks. So if I have a problem or I never got an email, just write it on the forum.
There actually is an alternative. We've tried not to publicize this too much because it's better to have everything organized in one place. But there is actually a backup way of doing it, which is if you go to the DApp, you can register yourself on the DApp, and that goes to a different email list. So if you do see people who are complaining about that, tell them to try the DApp, and then, because at the end of the day, we're just basically going to merge those two lists.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure. TM, I think you were trying to ask something.
Yeah, that's true. There's one trading functionality I would probably die for, and that's the use of limit orders. Is this something the system, or is it feasible to expect it maybe in the future, or is the current system not able to provide that at all? Can you give me a small outline on that?
Great question. Jamie, Aurora, do one of you want to answer?
Yes. So yes, we're planning to have limit orders and conditional orders of all kinds.
Awesome.
The thing is that to have it in a decentralized way is quite costly if you implement it in the smart contracts and have to pay for each action, which is creating an order, canceling an order, updating an order, everything would be associated with a cost. The alternative is to build out a completely different distributed network just for exchanging the limit orders and relaying services. But the thing is that we are currently preparing our deployment on an optimistic rollup. And when you're able to do it, then suddenly the transaction costs for creating limit orders, for updating limit orders, and for canceling limit orders will be diminishable. So this means that a smart contract solution for this becomes suddenly not just feasible, but also economically interesting. And then we definitely will have conditional orders. In fact, it's already planned for the next sprint. You will not see it deployed on the next sprint, but it will be in work on the next sprint.
Jesus, that's a killer. That's blasting me away, so to say. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. In the meantime, I was just informed that I was wrong. The DApp actually was rerouted, and now they both send emails to the same place. So people who want to be registered probably still need to write themselves in the form, and then we can try and make sure that they're added. The issue is if they're not getting emails, then even if we email them about the fact that the pre-sale, the pre-funding, for example, has started, they may not get that email. So, we do what we can, but the best thing to do is always just pay attention in Telegram or like the announcements channel, or here in Discord, or we try to announce it on Twitter as well, so that even if you don't want to use email or can't use email, you can still get informed. I'm scanning up and down for any other people who would like to ask questions. So if you sort of raise your hand, I think I'm seeing Dooley. Did you want to ask something? No? Okay.
Actually, if there's nobody else, I have just 2 quick questions.
Sure.
One is, could you repeat, please, the place where the governance issues are taking place? You said it's forum.sovryn.net.
Forum.sovryn.app.
Yeah, just go to the Sovryn website and put the word forum before Sovryn. And
okay, awesome. And the other thing regarding the Genesis sale, I just got my 4,000 SOV after the SIP 4 pass through. I just wanted to ask what's going to happen with the excessive funds. I sent a bit more. Can this be added to my Sovryn wallet and then used during the Origins sale, or it has to be?
Yeah, that's the plan. Where all excess funds are going to be transferred to the pre-deposit flow, so that you can still withdraw them if you want, but they will just basically put you front of line for Origin.
Okay.
One thing that I would want to mention: Bitcoin main chain doesn't work like a smart contract system. So on a smart contract system, we can basically, if you send us too much funds, the system can auto redeem for you. So it basically sends the excess funds back. With Bitcoin, we can't do that. And so it can create a huge amount when thousands of people send us more money than we're supposed to receive. It can create an issue. So it suddenly means that the treasury needs to pay back, redeem all of those transactions. And the treasury, in order to keep the treasury secure, is a multi-sig system, which means that multiple different parties need to agree to those transactions. So the overhead on redeeming, a few, 0.01 Bitcoin that was sent can be quite huge. So here's a question that I have for you guys. One thing that we've been considering is with Origins, just telling people, listen, please only send the amount of funds that you're allowed to send. If you want to send more, that's fine, but we're going to treat it as a donation to the sovereign nation. So you won't get your funds back. And I kind of want to hear what you guys think, if anyone has an opinion on this.
Sorry, Yago, could you just repeat that real quick?
Sure. So let's say you have, one of the things that we want to try and do is make there be a maximum that any given wallet can send, right? So that we can allow as many people to participate as possible. I have suggested it be 0.1 BTC. It can be anything, but it's likely that there will be with Origin a maximum that you should be funding, per wallet or per address. But some people might send us more. And there's substantial overhead in basically sending all of those funds back. So one of the things that we're considering is telling people, this is the maximum you're allowed to send. I mean, you're allowed to send whatever you want, but this is the maximum you can send that will actually be converted to SOV. And any more that you send will be considered a donation. The idea there is not so much to get the donations, it's more to kind of let people know that they should be a little bit more careful. But I'm curious what you guys think about that.
No, I think that's a great idea. I agree.
Great
I
idea,
like that.
yes.
The one thing I would say is if we're going to do that, we should make it very, very clear on the deposit page.
I will make that very clear.
Good.
Does anyone think it's not a good idea?
I think that there could probably just be a better idea of like the UI not letting you input a higher
Unfortunately,
number than you're allowed? If
there's
that's not
no
possible.
not possible, because basically people can send any amount of money, any amount of Bitcoin, right? Like once they get an address, they could send all of the Bitcoin. Now, if someone probably made the mistake of sending us 100 Bitcoin by mistake, we could probably assume that's a mistake, and we may be willing to give some of it back. but I think, you know, the problem becomes when you get a whole bunch of like almost dust transactions that are being sent. So, but I'd really like to hear if someone thinks this is a bad idea. Light, you wanted to comment?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like if there is this, you know, attempt at like limiting the amount that can be sent from addresses. I mean, I first, you know, I commented in the forum, like I don't think that works. Like, you know, I'm already splitting my Bitcoin across a bunch of different addresses. I'm not literally, but like I'm saying, like if I really care about getting more tokens than the limit on a single address, I'm already like splitting my Bitcoin across multiple different addresses. So it's just it seems a little bit like more theatrical and less practical. But
well,
you know,
let me just respond to that, because I think that's a good point, and it's also something we've discussed. Well, you're right, and there's nothing we can do to stop people from doing that. However, there are things that we're doing to make it more inconvenient, so that because basically the more friction you add to something, the less it's going to happen, right? So to make it more inconvenient, we require you to provide your email in advance. We then require you to input your email and attach it to your wallet for this particular purpose. So you don't ever need to use that address again. But if you want to use the address for the pre-funding, then you need to have it associated with an email address. And then we also make you go through a CAPTCHA. So
Is there a way to add another item like saying, by signing this, I agree that I will not send more than the amount, otherwise it's just not going to be returned back, and then you check the box?
yeah, we actually have a flow where you have to check the box as well.
How about issuing NFTs like you did last time? Is that even an option to prevent people from double dipping?
It is, but it actually, I think we thought about it and we realized that sort of there's no additional benefit that you get on the NFT beyond sort of tracking the address, right? So we can see unique addresses, we can see unique NFTs. And so we think right now that associating it with an email is probably about, you know, or we could just have everyone go through KYC, but there's no one to do that. So you know, there's no perfect system.
Yeah, I mean,
so
my suggestion in the forum was basically like, you know, we actually have I think a decent Sybil resistant system, like the NFTs that have already been airdropped on original users. Like, you know, they didn't know that, you know, these NFTs were going to be used like this, and so it's unlikely that they had kind of prepared a Sybil attack ahead of time. And so, you know, my suggestion was basically you split the origin in two. You have half that goes to the NFT holders, and then half that's a free for all. So you have basically no Sybil resistant mechanisms on the free for all side, and then, you know, for the NFT side, you get a relatively wide distribution that's Sybil resistant, and so you kind of get the best of both. Whereas if the entire thing is this, like, yeah, I mean, you know, I can generate email addresses for free all day. I can sit and click on CAPTCHAs all day. There's a lot of money on the line, so it's like I'm willing to do whatever it takes to bypass the Sybil, you know, mechanisms if I'm really a motivated actor here.
So I think that's not this. I'll discuss that idea more with you and others in the forum, because I think it's a good idea. In practice, there are probably still like if we did, that's not necessarily a bad idea. We could consider doing it, and I don't know. I want to talk to the devs as well about whether or not they would add a lot of overhead. I might, and at this point we just can't add additional dev overhead, but it still doesn't sort of solve the problem, because even the people who had the limit last time, they transferred us a whole bunch of like excess BTC, which we're now transferring into the pre-deposit flow. So
that gets me to the question. That was actually that whole thing was a setup for my actual comment on your thing. So like assuming we get over that hurdle, and we still have this question of what if people send excess BTC, and you're saying what do we feel about just considering that a donation to the Sovryn project? My comment was basically I think that's fine, especially if there's a bunch of flashing warnings like like you can only send up to this much, like anything you can send over it's a donation to the project. And I would just say, like, I probably wouldn't make any exceptions for that. If someone sends 100 BTC, like you had the warning.
Good for the Sovryn treasury, you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Like I don't want to give any users kind of preferential treatment, because then where do you draw the line? It's like,
no, I get it. I think that's a great
NBTC?
comment. I think that's a great comment. Listen, guys, this has been one of my favorite community calls so far, in part because the discussion has been so two ways, and you guys have been contributing so much. It's now 5 p.m., which means we've had our hour. And because people, so I think what we'll do is what we always try to do, which is we'll bring the community call now to an official close, but anyone who wants to stay and talk some more, I'll stay for a bit, and anyone else who wants to stay can stay as well. So, Ingemar, I'm going to hand it back to you to bring the call to an official close.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you all for coming in and sharing your curiosity on how this governance is how it works, and in the process you are shaping it. So I really appreciate the support. It makes all the hard work worthwhile, and we're blazing a trail for financial freedom here. So we're dismantling what people know and understand about money, and making an art of it along the way. So help us spread the word and create more sovereign individuals. Thanks, everyone.
Guys, just a question for the community, because I didn't receive an email and I registered. Where exactly in the Discord should we be posting, or where is this form that we should be filling out so that we can be registered?
Dragonly, I think you created it. Can you respond to that? Is Dragonly here?
I think Dragonly is muted. He's server muted. Someone has to unmute him. Wait, I'm trying to do it. I can speak.
Yeah, Dragonly, can you respond?
Yeah. Can you repeat your question again?
Hey, Dragonly, it's Whipper. How are you, buddy? Just a question.
Hey.
So I registered on the app with my email for the presale, but I didn't receive any email. Where exactly is the form that I could sign up for, just to make sure that my email address is associated with the presale?
Okay, I can DM you the form I sent.
Could you DM it? Yeah, can you DM it? That'd be awesome.
No. We should have somewhere very public where people can find it.
I shared it 2-3 times in the group also.
Yeah, maybe we can pin it to the user feedback group or something.
Okay, I'll do that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, thoughts?
Yes,
complaints? Yes.
One question, please. I was just wondering, could you give us an overview on the coming timeline, maybe in key dates, perhaps concerning the private sale and public sale? You have also once mentioned an auction, so is that still up to date? And you have also mentioned, and you have also mentioned the reserve price for the auction. So I was wondering if you have an idea of how much would one SOV cost in these sales ahead.
So, we'll try to put out a document. One of the difficulties with giving exact dates is there are two moving parts always. One is development and like when things get audited and sort of passed as secure, and the second is when they get voted on, because these are important decisions. Like the distribution of token is a very important thing for the future of the system, so it's something which requires a vote. That said, we think that pre-deposits, right, the ability to deposit funds in advance of any sale, or which would be probably the auction, will start middle of next week. Then, or middle of or end of next week. Then, the week after that, the pre-deposit period would end, and there would be an auction. Now, there's one exception to that, and the exception is that currently, the CIP6 proposal, and this can change, but right now, no one seems to be objecting, so it looks like it's going to go forward. The CIP6 proposal proposes a maximum price of 10,000 Satoshis per SOV. That would mean that if 2 million Satoshis are sold, it would raise a total of 200 Bitcoin. If during the pre-deposit period, 200 Bitcoin are pre-deposited, it will basically cancel the auction. It will mean that there will be no auction. It will just be a distribution of SOV to those who pre-deposited. And that's because the pre-deposits will automatically get applied to the auction at the clearing price. Now, I know I'm using a lot of words here that maybe aren't familiar to everyone, right? Reserve price, clearing price, opening price. But basically the way a Dutch auction works is it starts with a high price and the price goes down. And people can make their transaction anytime they want, but the moment they make the transaction, they make it at the price that the auction is currently at. But you don't pay that price. You pay the price which is known as the clearing price, which is the price where all of the tokens would have been bought up at that price. But if everyone basically is going for the clearing price at the beginning, then the maximum price becomes the clearing price. So the market will decide what the price of SOV is. And if the pre-deposits exceed, or basically reach the maximum, that probably means that even the maximum price is actually less than what the market is willing to pay. So that's what's supposed to happen over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. And then after that, as a final pre-sale, and this is up to you guys as well. It's not, it's a decision that we'll make together. So it would be great to hear your thoughts on it, is to have one final smaller pre-sale on Ethereum. And that would basically be to make it, bring access to the liquidity on Ethereum, get the Ethereum, people who haven't heard about Sovryn yet, because they're more Ethereum centric, to hear about Sovryn, basically bring over the liquidity and the users. And make the integration between Sovryn and Ethereum tighter. So that's the roadmap.
Great, really interesting. Do you have, maybe I think it's too early to say this, but do you have an idea of how much could be the clearing price and reserve price, for example, and the starting price?
The CIP6 has a starting price of 10,000 Satoshi per SOV, and a reserve price of 3,000 SOV, and the clearing price can be any of those two numbers or anything in between.
Yeah, true. Sorry, because the clearing price is not defined for sure. Yes.
Cool. Any other things people want to bring up? I see dnkta.eth. Dinkta. Did you want to say something? No. Okay.
Hey, buddy. I'm sorry,
Hi.
but I couldn't be I couldn't be here on time, so I didn't heard all the chat. So I'm asking if there's a possibility of a, a very nice sieve as you guys are usually as you guys usually make, or if there is any possibility of a complimentary report of this call or something in order to keep us aware of what.
Yeah, absolutely. So a recording of this call will be published on the Sovryn YouTube channel. And in addition to that, don't know if Dollar Crypto is here. I didn't see him today. But Dollar Crypto usually writes a summary of every governance call.
Oh, awesome. Thank you a lot.
Sure.
It might be a good idea to post those on the Sovryn forum.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that he was doing it until about 2 days ago.
Permission.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Hi, Iago. You already mentioned the Keep project, and I'm a validator for TBC, and I'm very interested in your project and how ways you can interact together, and maybe you can share some more information if you are allowed.
Yeah, so sorry, who's speaking? It's Johnny Ace? No.
No.
Okay. Well, what's your username?
It's GNTK.th.
Oh, you guys are near each other. Okay. All right. Yeah. So awesome that you're a validator. Right. You know what would be awesome? Actually, is you could help us test the implementation that we're doing on testnet. If you could message me, actually, that would be super cool. Right now it's on testnet and we're testing it internally, but I think maybe even next week we might be looking for third-party validators who could help us test it. Currently, we don't know exactly how it's going to be rolled out. Part of that is based on conversations that we'll have with the thesis team. But they'll definitely be like the earn something like Keep or Keep itself or something as a validator. So please message me because I think we could have a very interesting conversation.
Okay, great. Sounds great. Thank you.
By the way, I see some other people now are messaging me that they want to test as well. That's awesome. It's like one of the biggest things that you can do is help test the system. Any other thoughts or questions?
I have a question.
Sure. Who's speaking, please?
Cats.
Cats?
Cats.
All right. Yes, cats.
All right. So you said if enough people transfer money, I mean not money. Sorry, if enough people transfer like before the auction, there will be no auction, right?
That's right.
But how do you actually transfer? Because according to the guide, it says you just just click the top up button. But I don't
yeah. Great. That's a great question. We've removed the top up button due to the fact that there were liquidity issues with the RBTC peg. So we've built an alternative system, but we are only going to expose that alternative system when the pre-funding becomes available. So you can use RBTC and you can use BTC, but you don't need to convert to RBTC just for that. If you register at token.sovryn.app, then you'll be in the queue and you'll receive an email that will let you know when you can pre-deposit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. All right, guys. Let's do just 2 more questions. So who would like to ask the second to last question? Is that TM? Are you looking to ask something, TM?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. I read and commented. I had a little bit of conversation about the platform's revenue being distributed to SOV holders like stakers, but I couldn't find any more details or the plan for it. Can you highlight that a little bit more, or is it too early for that?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question. The what's going to be transferred?
Like that parts of the platform's revenue is distributed.
Oh, yeah. So all of the platform's revenue.
All, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So the protocol earns fees, right? Kind of like the way Bitcoin miners earn fees. So every time you do a Bitcoin transaction, you need to pay fees, right? Every time you make a transaction on Sovryn, you need to pay fees. You pay in Bitcoin, but you pay basically 2 types of fees. You pay the transaction fee and you pay the trading or the lending fee. That trading and lending fee, the fee that you pay for the service, that goes into the sovereign treasury. But it goes into a specific type of treasury. That treasury gets paid out on an ongoing basis to the active sovereign stakers. So it's kind of like by being a staker, you're kind of, in some ways, that's not exactly the same thing, but in some ways, you're kind of like playing the same role that a miner plays in Bitcoin. So you're participating in the governance of the system, right? In managing the system, and you're getting paid or incentivized to do that. And I hope I answered that question. And we have time for one more.
No.
No, that
Sorry.
didn't answer the question?
What you explained is clear to me. I thought about a little bit more in detail how it should work and if there is an outline form already, how it should work exactly, or I don't know if it's too early for that or not.
So it's already constructed. It's already built into the system. But there are some changes that we want to introduce, and we are doing a technical or sort of less technical write-up of how it works. There's quite a lot of work right now around trying to document the entire governance process, but it's not ready yet. It will take, those things will be written over the coming few weeks.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right, guys. Who's going to be our last question? I'm not sure. Maybe we're done. Does anyone, if you want to shout out in case I'm not seeing you? All right, awesome. Guys, girls, sovereigns, thank you very much. This has been, I think, my most enjoyable community meeting yet. Thank you all for joining and for participating and for helping. And I look forward to seeing you at the next one.